Dubs OT with John Dickinson on KNBR 104.5 and 6.8. Streaming live at twitch.tv/thesportsleader.
Rollins will cap off the scoring, dropping in that three. So the Warriors starting to put some wins together. Steph got to sit the whole fourth quarter. Klay Thompson had 20, Steph had 30. They put 6 people in double figures. Jordan Poole had a nice night with 25, and the Dubs get the win, which is all that matters. Sleep fast, Portland tomorrow.
Yeah, the Warriors are right back at 500. Just like that. 4 consecutive wins, and that's exactly what the victory over the Boston Celtics on Tuesday could do for this Warriors squad. As discussed here on Dubs OT, we welcome you in on KNBR, the sports leader. 808 KNBR is the number. It's John Dickinson with you after each and every game. And the Warriors are playing a lot better basketball, and it continues to be the mixture of young and old helping to get the job done for the Warriors. We appreciate everybody who's jumping in on YouTube and Twitch as well. We'd like to keep this program as interactive as possible as the Warriors win by the final of 129-118. And it was a game that really wasn't even that close. The Warriors did lead by as many as 23 in this one, and they get the job done to improve to 14-14 with Portland, as you heard Fitz mention there on the NBC Sports Bay Area call in tomorrow at Chase Center. And the Warriors will look to get back over the 500 mark. 808 KNBR, the number to react to this one. Jordan Poole makes his return. That was the big story leading up to this one, with the Wizards coming in at 5-22. The Warriors, as we have talked about already here on the program, trying to get back to the 500 mark, and the Wizards have just been awful. What would the reception be for Jordan Poole in his return to Chase Center? And thankfully, because I know it had been much discussed, the Warriors paid a really nice tribute to Jordan Poole with a video during the pregame introduction, and then Jordan Poole was introduced, and he got a really nice, warm ovation. It wasn't what I would call a lusty ovation, but it was really appropriate and on point. It didn't linger. It wasn't like there wasn't a second wave necessarily to it, but I also couldn't really hear any level of a boo to it as well from where I was when I was over there before heading here to the studio to do Dubs OT. So, yeah, good positive vibe. And, you know, you had a number of different Warrior players, from Stephen Curry to Gary Payton II to Kevon Looney to Klay Thompson before the game, all making a point to go up during the early warm-up and say hi to Jordan Poole as he was getting locked in. And, Poole acknowledging the crowd and waving and smiling and all of that. And I think, it helps, I think, probably add to some of the closure as to everything that happened and how things went down from Poole beginning his career in a tough spot. I mean, he really struggled in that 15-50 year to the point where you wondered if he was actually going to be able to carve out an NBA career. And he's not only done that, but gone on to be somebody that got the contract that he earned with the $120 million and everything that he was able to do, basically by helping the Warriors to that play-in tournament berth in 2021 and then helping them win the NBA championship in 2022. So on the Jordan Poole front, as far as the big headline coming into the game, box checked, and then the Warriors went out on the court and checked the box themselves to earn the victory. It was a little bit of a flat start for Golden State. 15-7, the Warriors were down 4:33 into this game, and I wasn't surprised at the flat start, believe it or not, just given the fact that the Warriors had such an emotional win over the Celtics on Tuesday, couple of days off between games, and aside from the Jordan Poole component to this thing, which, that's not really a motivating force. Like, it was a storyline and a headline, but not really a motivating force for the Warriors to go out and put a thumping on Jordan Poole. So good vibe pregame, but then the Warriors had to kind of manifest energy off the top of this one against a team that's just been dreadful on the young season, coming in at 5-22 and now leaving San Francisco at 5-23. And it was a second of a back-to-back for Washington as they won in Portland last night. So, yeah, the Wizards are really, 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 really bad. And the Warriors got down 15-7. Jonathan Kaminga, nice first quarter. He had 6 quick points. Kaminga brought energy, I thought, from the beginning when the Warriors didn't have a whole hell of a lot of energy. And he had the 6 quick ones. They were all transition, rolling, cutting to the basket. Then he passed up his own 3 to make the extra pass to Klay Thompson for a 3. And I thought, all right, Kaminga is starting to get it. And I think a lot of these Warriors younger players are starting to get it with the added playing time and being able to work themselves into the mix and make an impact on things. Jonathan Kaminga was terrific in this game, and he was terrific from start to finish. Again, when you look at the shot chart for Kaminga, he did hit 1 right wing 3, but basically everything else for Kaminga was in the paint. And that's exactly what you want. A layup or a dunk, transition or a cut, a roll to the basket. That's how Jonathan Kaminga, when Jonathan Kaminga has played his best, has had to operate in the context of the Warriors' offense. He was energy. He was a ball mover. He was a hustler. And he was a bucket getter in the paint for the Warriors. And that's just an element to where he's on. And when he's playing at the level that he's played at here lately, really since Steve Kerr pulled him out of the rotation for that first 2.5 quarters, going back to a couple of weeks ago, 2 weeks ago Wednesday, he's been a completely different player. And I think he's been as impactful a player for this Warriors team as he's ever been at any point in his career. So good on Jonathan Kaminga for starting off this game very well and finishing with a hell of a night. 22 points on 9 of 11 shooting as the Warriors had multiple in double figures. So 808 KNBR the number. It's Dubs OT with JD here on The Sports Leader as the Warriors win 129-118. We'll get to the YouTube chat. We'll get to Twitch and all of that. People already checking in here. Just saying hi, all that stuff. And I think the younger players now are pushing the envelope. And Kaminga, I chose to be the headliner because of the start to the game. But Trayce Jackson-Davis, make it 3 straight excellent ball games for Trayce Jackson-Davis. Make it another opportunity for Trayce Jackson-Davis, a second double-double consecutively for Trayce Jackson-Davis. Impressive stuff for Trayce Jackson-Davis as he ends up with a 10-15 game with another block and a couple of assists and played 25 minutes. So as this thing has gone on for the Warriors, it's been really Kaminga who's come alive, along with Trayce Jackson-Davis here in the last 3 games, and Podziemski. Maybe not Podziemski's best game tonight in terms of shooting, although he did knock down a couple of threes, but he scored 10 points and had 5 assists and 7 rebounds, and he is that connector that Steve Kerr wants him to be. And the starting lineup is working, folks. Like, here's the other thing that's going on with this Warriors team. The starting lineup is working. This lineup now is 4-1. The Steph Curry, Brandon Podziemski, Klay Thompson moves to the 3. Andrew Wiggins goes to the bench, and he didn't play in this game tonight due to illness. But you slot Kaminga at the 4 for Draymond Green, and then you play Kevon Looney. And the Warriors have found that even if Kevon Looney's going to start, Steve Kerr's had the ability to play the hot hand as far as the other bigs, and it led to Dario Saric getting an opportunity. You even saw Saric and Trayce Jackson-Davis playing together, which I think that was opened up by the fact that Andrew Wiggins was unavailable for this game, so you needed some 4 minutes if Kaminga was going to be the starter. So Saric played some 4 in this game tonight. But it has been Stephen Curry. It has been Klay Thompson who have led the way. Another efficient game. And yes, I'll call 8 of 17 if you're 4 of 10 from 3 efficient for Klay Thompson. 20-point game for Klay. It's been Curry and Klay Thompson. It's been Kaminga and Podziemski. And over the course of the last 3 games, it's been Trayce Jackson-Davis. So those 3 in particular pushing the envelope for the Warriors and pushing the Warriors into a position where they're hot for the first time since the first 6 games, or the first 8 games, rather, the season when they were 6-2. This team's got a 4-game winning streak, and we talked when they were 10-14, and they had just gotten beat in Phoenix. and then went to play the Clippers and got beat in that game as Steve Kerr was making lineup changes. And you were talking about the fact that unless this team's going to get on a winning streak, it might take you multiple weeks just to get back to the 500 mark. Well, they did it quick, fast, and in a hurry. And so the Warriors now, we're right back to 14-14, and guess what? They get Portland tomorrow with a hell of an opportunity to get to 15-14, and then you start to see if this team can separate from the 500 mark. But the reason that this thing is happening is because the young players are contributing as role players, and I think at times is better than role players. Scoring 22 points, that's more than just a role player type performance for Jonathan Kaminga, who got the start and has been getting the start here since Steve Kerr made the lineup changes. Trayce Jackson-Davis, 10 and 15 in 25 minutes. 10 and 15 in 25 minutes is not role player numbers. That's bona fide, legitimate, capable, big man type numbers for Trayce Jackson-Davis. So he's coming up big. Podziemski, as a glue guy, has come up big. And for Podziemski to be able to go after the shot that he took the other night, also a sign, I think, of his toughness after being unable to finish the game against the Celtics as the Warriors were able to come back and win that game ultimately in overtime. So 808 KNBR is the number, 808 KNBR. John Dickinson, it's Dubs OT with JD here on Esports Leader as the Warriors win it 129-118. Talked about the slow start, but you look at the end of the first quarter, and the Warriors found themselves up 3, 28-25. Played a pretty good second quarter. Steph Curry he got hot in quarter number 2. Jordan Poole got off to a 1 of 6 start on a night where he ended up 7 of 21 and 3 of 12 from 3. Kaminga, I mean, I just can't say enough good things about the way Kaminga played, and he's completely ditched the drive into that short pull-up game that he was missing a lot, or he was fumbling it a lot, or he was maybe thinking he was getting fouled and not getting the call a lot. He's just taking it to the rack, and it's decisive. His decision-making speed on what he's trying to do out there has completely changed. 62% shooting in the last 8 games for Jonathan Kaminga. That via my guy Greg Silver. Appreciate that. So he's been excellent, but the reason the shooting percentage has been so high has been because it's been all at the rim, basically. 3 here, 3 there, and he did hit the 1 3 in 2 attempts tonight, but it's basically been because Jonathan Kaminga's taken it all the way to the rack, and Kaminga's going to start forcing the Warriors maybe to rethink some things, and Trayce Jackson-Davis is maybe going to have to force the Warriors to rethink some things, because right now it's easy for them to get their minutes, and this team is developing a chemistry with the players that they've got. It's allowing for Draymond Green to take the time that he needs with his indefinite suspension. And look, Mike Dunleavy Jr. said straight up that the next 15 to 20 games, basically from the moment in which Draymond was suspended, were going to determine the course of action for what the Warriors were going to do, moving toward the trade deadline, which is basically about 6 weeks away. And so when you look at it, it's a nice problem to have the young players finally contributing with this team playing it. They're 4-1 basically since Mike Dunleavy Jr. said that, but they're 4-1 with Podziemski and Kaminga as starters, with Wiggins as a bench player, with Draymond Green completely out of the lineup. So I think that has the potential, if it continues, and look, opponent is part of it, although they just beat the best team in the NBA on Tuesday night, so you don't want to throw that completely out. But they're taking advantage of the teams that they're playing, and I think you have to give them credit for that. But it's bigger than that at this point when you look at the contributions that the Warriors are getting. So, yeah, Steph got hot, 14 in the second, had 17 at the half. But you looked up at halftime and you thought, oh, what? The Warriors actually lost the second quarter 36-35. It was 63-61 at the break. And then the Warriors basically put this thing away quarter number 3, 38-22. Steph is cooking, 8 of 13 from 3, ends up with 30. ends up only having to play 27 minutes, which you love, on the front end of a back-to-back with the Warriors having to play. And there was no drama. I think this is the first time, Greg, since we've done this show that there really hasn't been any drama. No close game tonight. Yeah, the 6-point game was the largest margin since we've been doing this when we tipped it off here on KNBR, the sports leader, on November the 30th. So, yeah, a little bit of breathing room. There was the Wizards' 11-0 run to cut it down to 12, basically with about 3-4 minutes to go, and you thought, is Steve Kerr going to have to put the starters back in? Steve Kerr going to have to put Steph back in? He did not have to do that in this one tonight. Lester Quinones with a big three to basically prevent Steve Kerr from having to go back to the starters. And so Warriors get themselves a nice win, and now we'll see if they can chase that with one tomorrow against Portland before a showdown on the Christmas holiday, 11:30 on Christmas, before everybody gets ready for 49er football here on the Sports Leader, as the Warriors will be in Denver for that one. And that's, the true test, I think, of, all right, well, where's this team really going to be at this point? The Nuggets, by the way, are going to be coming off of a long road trip to come back and play that game at what will be 12:30 Mountain Time on the holiday. So 808 KNBR. If you're leaving Chase Center, we want to hear from you. The young players are changing the conversation. We're going to hear from Steve Kerr. We're going to hear from players in the Warriors locker room. We're also going to hear from Jordan Poole over on the Wizards side of things, as he will meet with the media and address the wonderful ovation that Dub Nation gave to him. Warriors get the win, 129-118. 808 KNBR is the number. We'll get to the YouTube and Twitch stream and chat. It's Dub's OT with John Dickinson on KNBR 104.5 and 680, the sports leader.
back with more Blue and Gold. This is Dubs OT with John Dickinson on the Sports Leader. Streaming live at KNBR.com and on the KNBR app.
Steph three. He was already running back. He knew it was down. Only his second made field goal. He's been kind of running things with 5 assists. There you got numbers. He's hit 2 threes. Make it 3. Here he goes. Little Curry flurry heading to halftime. He's dancing on him too. And the Steph. Rebound in motion. Curry just walks into a 3 of his own.
Gafford was tracking him and he just stopped. He's like, well, guys, I got to protect the basket. Someone else go get the guy.
Curry got it over him and made it anyway.
Not good enough.
There's nobody in France shooting like that.
That man is a magician with the ball.
Yeah, Stephen Curry getting the job done in this one. 30 for Steph. Warriors win it 129-118 as they handle business against the Wizards in Jordan Poole's return to the Bay. Warriors now 14-14. Stephen Curry, second and third quarters for Steph in this one. What did the trick for the Warriors to help put this game away? The Warriors putting this one away with the 38-22 third quarter explosion, and that's sort of been the story for teams against the Wizards over the course of this season. They hang around for a quarter here or there. It's kind of an up and down, open gym, light work kind of a game, and then a team will just thump them for 35, 40 plus in a quarter, and that's basically ball game over. And that's why they are now a 5-23 team on the season. 808 KNBR is the number if you're leaving Chase. How you feeling about these young players now and pushing the envelope? And I think having the potential to push the Warriors into rethinking once they get Draymond Green back, once Andrew Wiggins is coming back, and once they approach the trade deadline, some of the potential of what they want to do to try and maximize the Steph Curry still at an elite status type of a window. And it's a hell of a nice problem to have. But a week ago, 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, the conversation was, how does this Warriors team get better? Because it looked as if Klay Thompson didn't have it, Andrew Wiggins wasn't going to get it, and the young players, really other than Podziemski, were not flashing at a consistently high level. Now, Moses Moody was doing some things that were allowing him to be a solid role player on a night-in, night-out basis. But now you fast forward a couple of weeks, and all of a sudden, the Warriors are in a spot where Steph and Klay are back. Jonathan Kaminga is making leaps and bounds over where he was. Trace Jackson-Davis is off the pine and making an impact defensively, making an impact rebounding the ball, making an impact scoring the basketball. And this team is looking deeper and stronger, and like they have that true veteran young player balance that Steve Kerr has wanted. So all of that is great when you look at what the Warriors have been able to do. And like I said, I think it's changing some of the narratives surrounding this team in a pretty quick way. 808 KNBR, the number here on the Sports Leader. Uncle Looney checking in. Let's get to the YouTube chat and appreciate everybody on YouTube. Uncle Looney talking about Kaminga, and I think it's the point of the night here early on the YouTube chat. Kaminga looks very relaxed, not overthinking. I completely agree with that. Jonathan Kaminga, I think when Steve Kerr took Kaminga out of the rotation in that game against Portland, I think the message was that Kaminga has to play harder and faster, but not more rushed. Because I think at times when Kaminga would play harder and faster, he would play rushed, and that would lead to mistakes. Kaminga's playing hard. Kaminga's playing high effort, high energy, but he's making his decisions quickly. Am I going to drive by somebody? Boop, go. Am I going to pull up for a jumper? No. I'm driving to the rack. I'm using the space created on the floor, and I'm getting to the rack, and it's going to be a layup or it's going to be a dunk. And so Jonathan Kaminga's raised his game in a big-time way. How about a couple of the passes? How about Kaminga on a drive under the basket, kicking the ball out to Klay Thompson for a three? How about Kaminga wide open corner three, which is a shot that I think the Warriors want him to take, and he split second. Now I'm going to kick it up to the wing because Klay Thompson's standing wide open on the wing for a good look at a three. And Kaminga kicks it to him. And Klay knocks it down. So that's the rhythm. That's the unselfishness. That's the decisiveness. That's the style of play to where you get the best of all worlds from Jonathan Kaminga. You get his energy. You get his athleticism. You get a little bit of skill, though, that's also complementary to the rest of what the Warriors are trying to do. And that's what we're finding. You know, Steph and Klay are doing their thing. Looney's not playing a ton, but Kaminga's bringing the slashing capabilities. Pajemski's bringing heat. It's just a nice complement in this starting lineup of young and old. So back to 500. Back to 500 for the Warriors. AHK 1204. JK, TJD, and Pods getting the Warriors back to 500. And getting the Warriors tied with the Suns, who got smoked in Sacramento tonight. Kings have smoked the Suns twice here in basically 2 weeks. And, yeah, the Suns are in a bad way. Bradley Beal can't stay healthy. Devin Booker and Kevin Durant, like that team looks suddenly like a team that put it on the Warriors a couple of times, but they look like a team now that has a bad mix of young and old and mostly old and not deep and all of those different things. So what is the Warriors' ability to get back to 14-14 done for them? Well, it's raised them basically to where they're still 11th in the West. They're still 11th, but they're tied with Phoenix. The Lakers have lost 4 in a row as the Warriors have won 4 in a row. So the Warriors have gained on the Lakers from basically 4 games back. Lakers were 15-10 rather when the Warriors were 10-14. So now the Warriors are basically a half game out now of 9th, and they're a game out of 8th. And on their way up as Dallas has faded a little bit after a hot start. They've lost 3 in a row. So the teams that the Warriors have really made ground on are the Lakers and the Suns and the Mavs. And when you look at the 6th spot, which is currently the Pelicans at 17-12, the Warriors are only 2.5 games out of that. So things can change quick, fast, and in a hurry. But the way things change quick, fast, and in a hurry is when you get on a little bit of a winning streak. And the Warriors had shown really an inability to do that after the hot 6-2 start. But again, a big reason why the Warriors are doing it is because of the infusion of young talent being able to help lead the way and balance the way with Steph Curry and with Klay Thompson. Regulator checking in on the YouTube chat. The Wizards are so bad you can't take anything away from this game. I disagree with that. Well, actually, I don't disagree. The Wizards are really freaking bad. The Wizards are horrifically bad and kind of gutless. Like, let's be honest. The Wizards are kind of gutless. Like, wide open threes for the Warriors. They were basically, were they playing drop against Steph Curry, or were they playing just let Steph Curry shoot open threes? Those were warm-up shots that the Warriors were taking. And any semblance of ball movement, it was just zero resistance. You had Jordan Poole in the lane with Kaminga coming downhill, and Poole just olayed him right to the bucket. The Wizards are gutless. So, yeah, grand scheme of things, does this make the Warriors a title contender that they were able? No, that's not the point. The point is they needed to win. They needed to win convincingly. I didn't think the Warriors played a great game at the beginning, but they got it rolling and they handled business. So along those lines, and they handled business without having to sweat it out against a bad team, even at home. So I think you get credit for that. You get credit for that. So I'm not going to say you can't take anything away from this game. Regulator also adding he's glad the Dubs didn't let him hang around too long. He or she. Regulator could be a she. So, yeah, no reason to boo Poole. Handled the whole situation with class. I would agree with that. We'll see what Jordan Poole has to say post-game. There was a little smile from Jordan Poole when the tribute video was being put up on the board and when he was introduced by Matt Pittman, the public address announcer inside Chase Center. There was a little smile. It almost made me think that Jordan Poole was a little bit surprised that there really weren't any boos. But we had Marcus Thompson on earlier here on the Sports Leader, the Tolbert and Cope show with Kerry Crowley and myself filling in. And Marcus Thompson said, hey, Jordan Poole really showed the divide among Dub Nation with respect to people who go to games and watch games and people who basically consume the Warriors via social media at a high clip. And he said, no, the people that watch the games and go to the games in particular, those folks understood and appreciated and watched Jordan Poole grow up. The people in the Twitter sphere or the social media sphere, a lot more reactive and caustic and reactionary, I guess. I thought it was a pretty salient point by MT2. San Jose Jazz fan the third, one of our favorites here on the YouTube stream here on the Sports Leader. For some reason, the ESPN box score, this guy running material. For some reason, the ESPN box score does not record slip and falls. But it seems to me the Warriors were on the floor more than the Wizards. Yeah, Jordan Poole hit the floor and hit the floor in not a good way. Rebel DeSounds with the Stephen Curry line, 30 on 8 of 13 from 3, 7 assists. Like, Steph was just in command. He was just in freaking command. Great stuff. Enrique Rivera. Good evening, JD. Good evening, Greg Silver. Good evening, Enrique. Appreciate you. Another double-double for Trayce Jackson-Davis. Yeah. Impressive for Trayce Jackson-Davis on that double-double front. Second consecutive double-double. Game high and career high 15 rebounds. And here was the nugget that had everybody abuzz with Trayce Jackson-Davis. He joined tonight Victor Wembanyama and Chet Holmgren as the only rookies this season to record consecutive point rebound double-doubles. Now, Wembanyama did it in 8 straight, and Chet Holmgren did it in 2 straight twice. So, again, I'm not saying he's on that. We're not going to say Trayce Jackson-Davis is on that level, but he's shown that he can make a big-time positive impact, and that was a note that was making its way around Chase there in the second half of this one as the Warriors wind up getting the win 129-118. 808 KNBR is the number if you're leaving Chase, heading on into the night, getting ready for that quick turnaround to head right back to Chase tomorrow, possibly. See the Warriors and the Blazers. The old Friday, Saturday back-to-back. Paul Hansen, Kaminga! Exclamation point. Love to see what's happening here. I think a lot of Warrior fans are loving the fact that it's clicking for Jonathan Kaminga. And Kaminga just looks happier. I've always felt like Kaminga doesn't feel like he's contributing unless he's scoring. And so now he's scoring, which I think relieves some of the pressure on him, but he's scoring in a way that I think Steve Kerr wants him to be, and he's providing all of the other things that the Warriors want in terms of energy and effort and just being a high motor player. So I think that you got to respect. Enrique Rivera skipping right to the point. Draymond go bye-bye, question mark? I don't think that's where this is headed by any stretch of the imagination. I don't think Draymond Green's getting Wally pipped. I don't think Draymond Green is getting is having what was done to him, what he did to David Lee. I don't think that's being done to him right now. But Steve Kerr is going to have to figure out some combinations. And look, here's the thing. If this team continues to play hot the way that they're doing it with this starting lineup and this rotation, and yeah, Drew Down chiming in on the YouTube chat. I forgot Wiggins was even out tonight. I did too, Drew Down. I actually did too. I didn't forget once the game started, I knew once the game started, it was on my little typed up note thing that I have here on my laptop for those of you watching. I got the iPad and the laptop going and like a million freaking screens in the studio here. But I made the note about Wiggins, and then you're right. By the third quarter, you're like, oh yeah, Wiggins didn't even play tonight, and the Warriors didn't even need him. But I think Amar Singh brings up the point. Amar Singh brings up the point that, and I think this is where I am going with it. Steve Kerr's going to have to wait and figure out what to do with Draymond. And look, Draymond's return might be a month away still. I mean, that's the reality. I know it was reported a couple of days ago that it was going to be at least 3 weeks, and at least 3 weeks from when it was reported. I think it would take it all the way to at least January 8th. I mean, we're coming up. I think that was Monday when that was reported, and 3 weeks from Monday is January 8th. I remember that only because January 8th happens to be somebody's birthday. Just throwing it out there. We'll see who remembers. May or may not be the host of Dubs OT. Just throwing it out there. May or may not. We won't be on that night, so it doesn't matter. Warriors don't play that night. But anyway, January 8th, less than 3 weeks away. And so that was sort of the earliest point in which Draymond would be having the possibility to return. But the question is, and I lost it here in the chat because I wanted to make sure I read it. Greg, find that one for me and put that one up on the screen. Draymond should not start, all caps, when he comes back. Make the guy come off the bench. Now, that is a point I will go to. And if the Warriors are going to keep playing at this level with this group, then Steve Kerr's going to have to work some of the guys that were maybe in the original plan differently. And Draymond came off the bench in a freaking playoff game last year. So if he can do that and did it willingly, and this team's got action with Kaminga at the 4 and Podziemski at the 2, then I think Steve Kerr's going to have to roll with that and not be afraid of it and figure out a new look rotation basically by accepting Draymond Green back as more of a role player. Andrew Wiggins, I thought, had played better as a bench player when they flipped him and Podziemski and moved Klay Thompson basically up to the 3, and then Draymond's spot was taken by Kaminga. So yeah, a lot of people are saying the quiet part out loud. And Erwin Kwong checking in. Dre can't say anything if the Dubs are winning without him. It's on him to fit in and not the other way around. He has no team cred at this point. That might be a little bit strong, but I think the overarching point is 100% accurate. And again, it might be a month away, and we might be looking at the Warriors being basically a middling 500 team in the time that they roll this lineup out there. Injuries can happen. A lot of different things can happen. But if this continues, then Draymond Green is going to be coming off the freaking bench when he comes back. 808 KNBR is the number. 808 KNBR. It's John Dickinson. It's Dubs OT with JD here on the Sports Leader. Drew down Wiggins off the bench, at least this year, is still a great rotation piece. I think that's the hope, and I think that's what it has been. And then the questions about packages and trades and all of that's going to start coming up. Amar, I would package Moody, Wiggins, and a pick, see if you can get a good player, not a great player, and a solid playoff player. I don't know if that's getting you a lot. Draymond might ask to come off the bench. I look, if he did it in the playoffs, I do think he would be able to do it. But this team's going to have to continue to play at the level. Gonzalo Naranjo. JD, you said it well when you said this team is looking deep. They are suddenly looking deep. They look deep in that their bench scoring was always pretty good on a night-in, night-out basis, but it didn't really feel like when you were watching them that they were that deep because there weren't a lot of players playing well on a night-in, night-out basis. even though the overall numbers, at least for the bench guys, were looking good. So that does indicate depth, but the problem is the starters weren't getting it done. Clay and Wiggins weren't getting it done at that point. Now you're getting Kaminga and Podziemski as starters are productive, and they're more productive than really Wiggins had been, even though, again, they're playing different positions. So, yeah, this team does look deep, a lot more deep than they did at other points this season. So 808 KNBR is the number. Kaminga was good. All he's got to do is keep getting into the paint to score. Yes, 100%. That's exactly been the success for Jonathan Kaminga. It's been all about getting all the way to the bucket. It's not, I want to get to the 10-foot mark and pull up and lose the ball and miss it or turn it over. So, yeah, this team's put the young players are forcing the young player or the veteran players, I think, to adjust to become a part of the equation. And that's a hell of a nice problem to have. Because a big part of the question is, can the young players play effectively with the veteran players? And right now the Warriors have a balance that I think everybody is really, really, really happy with. All right, we'll pause here. We'll come back. We got Sounds of Silver coming up as we'll head down to the press conference over at Chase. We'll have some fun with numbers between now and 11 o'clock. And we've got time for more of the YouTube chat. Appreciate everybody who's watching on YouTube and Twitch. Phone lines are ringing. 808 KNBR is the number. If you're out having a brew, baby, before you head back, give us a call. This is a night to be excited, I think, for Warriors basketball as this team gets right back to the 500 mark. But it's 500 and it's trending in a positive direction from there. It's not 500 hanging on for dear life. Don't know when the other shoe's going to drop. It's 500 and it feels like a legitimate ascension right now. So 808 KNBR the number. It's Dubs OT with JD, John Dickinson on KNBR 104.5 and 680, the sports leader.
Did you hear something?
Yeah, like a swoosh.
Yeah.
Dubs OT presents the sounds of silver. Streaming live on YouTube at KNBR 1045.
All right, welcome back. Warriors get the win, 129-118. 808 KNBR is the number. Sounds of silver coming up here in just a moment on the Sports Leader. But we do have some calls to get to. Again, 808 KNBR. We'll get back to the YouTube chat as well as the Warriors improve to 14-14. 28 games into the year, man. That means we're at the 1/3 mark now of this season. Things start flying by. But the people want to talk. The young players contributing, Steph and Clay doing their thing, and everybody happy to celebrate the better moments from Jordan Poole's tenure as a member of the Golden State Warriors. Let's get to the phones. 808 KNBR, the number. Max in Gilroy is up here on the Sports Leader. Hey, Max.
Hey there.
What's going on?
Hey, my dad and I went to the game tonight. We thought the front court looked really good between Sarge, Jackson Davis, and Looney. Had a better second half. You know, knowing that the teams ahead of them obviously are really deep in the front court, do you feel like there's still a move to be made if the Warriors make that playoff push?
Yeah, I think that's the question is what would the move be? And I think that's where it becomes a little bit of a conundrum right now in that you love the way that the guys that are getting the opportunity to play are playing, but you also have to determine over the next, let's say, 6 weeks, Max, whether you think that's good enough with everybody else that's going to be coming back into the fold to be a title contender or not. And then you have to make the added tough decision, Max, which is, would you want to give up any of the younger players that are really starting to contribute to add a more veteran player back into the mix? I mean, on the one hand, it's a nice problem to have, Max. On the other hand, it's like, shoot, what the heck do you do? Because I think the Warriors for so long have wanted to see multiple young players all at the same time really start to contribute.
Yeah, and I know that Paul's helped a lot with his second unit, and there's talks of, you know, Levine's on the market and some higher marquee players like that. Do you feel like Chris Paul could be on the team after the trade deadline, knowing that that's a pretty good salary that can match up with a lot of the bigger names out there because it's expiring?
Right. It is. And it is expiring, or it has the ability for a team to opt out on it. And thanks for the call. Good stuff there from Max. I think they like having Chris Paul around, but it does give the Warriors flexibility. Chris Paul's been really good of late. Now, again, the young players are stealing the headlines, and rightfully so. But Chris Paul, 10 assists for the third time in 4 games tonight, and the 9th time this season. 6th time this year that he's had 10 or more assists off the bench. And when you look at Chris Paul and the overall numbers, it's 10 assists with 1 turnover. I mean, he's on one of these benders right now where he's, 40, 50 assists and like 4 turnovers. I mean, it's insane. And he had I think he had a 60-6 stretch at the beginning of the year where it was 60 assists to 6 turnovers. I mean, that's freaking insane. And so you like having that stability. And I think Chris Paul's been he hadn't always shot the ball great, but he's been a major factor in terms of the young players doing their thing and at times, but also the bench being as effective as the bench has been overall for the Warriors this season. 808 KNBR, the number. Drew Down. Drew Down is next here on the Sports Leader. Drew Down, are you going from the chat to the phones?
What's up, JD?
You got them both
everywhere.
Cooking? You got them both cooking right now?
I'm everywhere today. Hey, it's great to hear you as always, regardless of where you're coming from. I just wanted to highlight a couple players. Jonathan Kaminga. I know a lot of people think, you've been unfairly harsh on him, but I think you've been kind of just keeping it real. I think the growth of him, you can see it. His shot selection, he's not rushing shots. He's looking to make passes. I thought he played a great game. Trace Jackson Davis, I think he's been the big. This team hasn't had that vertical lob threat and somebody who could block shots. He's a player that this team hasn't had in recent years. So I love the way both of them young players have been playing. Brandon Pajemski, maybe he didn't have the most efficient night, but his rebounding and just his IQ, I think, shows up every night. So I love the way the young players are meshing with the old players rather than last year. It seemed like there was kind of a tug of war. It seems like this year the young and old are meshing really well. So I'm having fun watching this team play. As far as trading Chris Paul, I think that's crazy. If you watch the way, he's always looking to set other players up. We haven't had a table setter come off the bench like that since Sean Livingston. I think he does a great job with Clay. There's that one play where he kind of, a fast break, kind of ran into his defender, kicked it back to Clay for a three. So I think that the trade talk is kind of crazy. It's still way early to think, just to make a trade just to make a trade. I think there's a lot of time to kind of, like you said, feel this roster out, see what works. But 4 in a row, I love the way this team playing. I love watching the young guys. It's exciting, and it's just good to see the Warriors playing with joy again. So I'm having a great time watching this team roll right now.
Yeah, they are playing with joy. And thanks, Drew Down. Appreciate it. And, yeah, Chris Paul is, aside from, there's been some games where he's looked a little slow. There's been some games where he's not made shots. And I think the overall shooting numbers really have not been there for Chris Paul through the course of this season. But he's been, I think, a real positive player overall. And, Enrique on the YouTube chat, he has an efficient mid-range. He does, and it's hasn't always been there. But, there aren't a lot of veterans that really enjoy playing with young players, and I think that's been the thing with Chris Paul. I mean, hell, the Warriors' championship core players at times haven't looked like they've been all that thrilled to be playing with young players. Chris Paul's, cool with it. Yeah, let's go. Let's hand the torch off to the next generation. Allow me to help them become the dudes that they need to be. And so I think, that's an added benefit of having a guy like him around. Like Chris Paul, to me, has not been a problem at all for this team. He hasn't always performed well, as a player of his age may not. But I think for the most part, Chris Paul's been a real positive impact type player for this team. And again, I think the roles are starting to be, he only played 25 minutes tonight. 25 minutes, 10 assists. I would rather have Chris Paul playing 25 minutes than 33 minutes. But the Warriors have options to where now you're able to play some of these younger players with some of the veteran players, and it just doesn't feel like they're as old. There are times when you just look around and you go, man, this team's a little old. They just don't feel old because there's always now a couple of young players on the court at a given time, which I think is an added benefit. We'll get back to the YouTube chat coming up. 808 KNBR is the number, but we do want to get to Sounds of Silver. My guy Greg Silver jumping in here on the Sports Leader. What do we got tonight from the post-game press conferences and locker room?
Well, we actually had a chance to prepare a little post-game sound because Kyle and Raph did a fantastic job cutting things up out there while we were kicking off the show. And we, like you said, JD, we had a game where we kind of knew what the outcome was going to be about 10, 15 minutes before we went live. First time we've had such a privilege. And so one of the reasons that the Warriors are just looking so positive this week, vastly different from where they were 10 days ago, is because of Trayce Jackson-Davis. We're going to play 2 cuts in pretty quick succession, so don't get all your TJD thoughts out at once after this first one. We're going to hear from Brandon Pajemski and then head coach Steve Kerr. This is Brandon Pajemski talking about Trayce Jackson-Davis not just being as someone that's nice to have and someone who's really blossomed as a fellow rookie. He says Trayce Jackson-Davis is someone they need. Let's take a listen.
I think he's someone we need. I kind of saw it when I got to play with him in Santa Cruz and the summer league for that short stint. He brings something different that we don't have. And, we got 3 different type of bigs, which is good depending on the team we play. And, Gafford's a above-the-rim guy, so, Trayce matching up with him with his athleticism was crucial. And I think for guards like me, Steph, and CP who don't play above the rim, he gives us a good outlet when we're going in there and Gafford's trying to block shots. Really all we have to do is throw it at the rim. So it's something we didn't have without him. And I think that's kind of, he's a big part of why we don't turn the ball over because, if we do get stuck, he's always an option for us.
Yeah, good stuff there. And I think, you look at it and it does bring it. I feel like the best way to put it is that the Warriors just have elements of their game right now working that they didn't have. Like Trayce Jackson-Davis wasn't playing well enough and didn't have the trust of the coaching staff to play. And now Trayce Jackson-Davis is playing, and you do have more rim protection, and you do have somebody that doesn't allow for a guy like Gafford to go off and dominate them at the level in which we've seen guys like that dominate them. Kaminga is basically from the 4 spot doing a lot of what Wiggins would do at the 3 spot. Like put his head down and get to the bucket. Different player, different style, but you're getting those easy baskets. Warriors had 50 in the paint tonight. 18 of 45 from 3. They had 50 in the paint, and they gave up 60. But you put 50 up in the paint, that's a good night for the Warriors. As 3-point heavy as they are. And Kaminga, the thing that I always like to look at with Kaminga is the shot chart. And as I look at Kaminga on the shot chart, 8 of 9 in the paint. So Jonathan Kaminga took 11 shots, and 9 of the 11 were, at the freaking rim. And he was 8 of 9 on those 9. He took a corner 3 from the left and missed it. He took I don't love the right wing 3. He's made it a little more lately. I hate when Kaminga takes the wing 3, but he hit it tonight. And I think what we've seen is once he gets going to the basket, I feel like he's more apt to make that shot when he gets going to the basket and his confidence gets going and all of that. So, but you can live with Kaminga taking 2 threes a game if he's going to be taking 8, 9, 10, basically at the rim and going 8 of 9. That efficiency level is where it's at for the Warriors. And when he's doing that, that's breaking the defense down. And then he's shown the ability now to kick out, which you're not going to need him to do a lot. But if the defense does collapse, he's kicking it out to Klay Thompson for wide open threes. So he's making a big time impact. He looks more comfortable. He looks more confident. And the players around him on this Warriors team seem more confident in him, which I think is a big part of it. What else we got tonight, Greg? I'm stealing your time, my friend. I'm just running off at the mouth here on Dubs OT.
We're getting paid to speak. I feel like you're just doing your job, my man. So we had a lot of Trayce Jackson-Davis content, but I'm glad you gave Kaminga his flowers, and everybody was asked about Trayce Jackson-Davis, including TJD himself. But we heard from Podziemski. I want to hear from the head coach of the Golden State Warriors, who has gotten a lot of criticism over the last few years, even with the 2022 championship team, for being very prone to small ball lineups and loving that style of play. Now, when you have one of the greatest guards and the greatest backcourt that's ever graced a hardwood, it makes sense. I get it. But at one point in time, this team actually had 5 centers on it, as Steve Kerr is going to allude to. And I want to pat myself on the back just a little bit, because for all the times I've been wrong about the Warriors in my lifetime, I did say Trayce Jackson-Davis adds a little bit of an element similar to Andrew Bogut in just doing the little things that the rest of the Warriors stars don't do. He could be a shot-blocking force for a team that is 28th in the league in blocks per game, and he could be someone that can go and catch lobs. Steve Kerr himself had a little bit of Bogut comparison to Trayce Jackson-Davis. Let's listen in.
I think people forget we used to have 5 centers on our team. For a few years, everyone wondered why we had so many centers, and now they all ask why we don't have any. But, my first couple of years, we had Andrew Bogut, and we ran a lot of our offense through him at the top of the key, and he was the master of, dribble handoffs and diving to the rim. That's pretty high praise. He's got a long way to go, Trayce does, to become Andrew Bogut, but it's a similar threat. Trayce is also a very good passer, like Bogues was, but just being able to run those dribble handoffs and dives, and that's the guy that I think of.
Yeah, I don't see Andrew Bogut totally. I really don't, but he's more than effective. I feel like Andrew Bogut was much more of a. I think when I think of Bogut the screen setter. I think of Bogut just the physical force. But, from a skill standpoint, he was incredibly skilled, and I think of Bogut as a crafty passer. I think Trayce Jackson-Davis definitely has some elements of that to his game. I don't think there's any doubt about it. But, no, I just, when I think of Trayce Jackson-Davis, I just think of somebody who plays beyond his years. And so at a young age, and obviously he played a lot in college, and the Warriors drafted him basically hoping that he could play immediately. And Steve Kerr's right. They used to have the 5-6-headed center monster when they had Durant and Steph and Clay and Draymond, and they would have a million centers on the back end of the roster, kind of a center for each different type of opponent that they would face, right? There were some nights it'd be Mo Spates, some nights it'd be a lot of Bogut, some nights it was DeMarcus Cousins over the years, some nights it was JaVale McGee. They had a bunch of guys that could do a lot of different things. Anderson Varejao, remember him for a short period of time? So yeah, they had a lot of different elements to what they could bring to the table as far as what was going on with that center spot. So yeah, but Trayce Jackson-Davis is doing his thing. And the Warriors have needed him to be able to do his thing, and it only helps this team continue to grow because it does bring a component to the table that the Warriors just have not had. Drew Down talking about Bogut. Bogut was good. A couple Jokic comps for Bogut. Yeah, Bogut would get out at the high block and pass it and dribble handoff and all those kinds of things. Regulator, TJD is 23. That's the advantage of drafting a four-year college player. They should be ready to go immediately. No doubt. And I think the Warriors, he was a no-brainer at where he was picked back into the second round. Now, Bogut was very good. There's no shade on Bogut. Bogut was awesome. He was a culture changer, I think, in terms of the Warriors becoming a formidable defensive team. Really him and Draymond. But there was a physicality. It also, he helped the Warriors offense because of all the screens that he set, too. That guy set murderous screens. Rich Ray checking in on the YouTube chat. JD, what up? So it's not about where Wiggs joins the starting lineup. He's out, unfortunately, but who does Draymond replace? It's a great question. I don't, well, no, he says TJ or BP, talking about Podziemski. Well, TJ's not starting. It's Kaminga starting right now. So as far as who would Draymond, I don't see the Warriors putting Draymond into the starting lineup and moving Kaminga to the 3. Kaminga doesn't play the 3. I know people don't really get that. Like, you're not going to see a loony Draymond Kaminga. You're probably not going to see a Saric Draymond Kaminga. Like, Kaminga plays the 4, basically. So what you're going to see is Draymond and Kaminga. If Draymond comes back, and then you have to hope that you don't run into some of the problems that you run into with Kevon Looney and Draymond out there together, which is you've got two guys that aren't really threats to score the basketball from the outside. So teams will just dare Kaminga to shoot threes and really sell out because they're not threatened by Draymond. So that becomes, I think, an interesting way to sort of look at it. But no, I think, right, like if Draymond Green was coming back tomorrow, I think Draymond Green would probably either be A, coming off the bench, or B, he'd be in Looney's spot. And they'd try to figure it out from there. Yeah, Enrique chiming in. Dre, Kaminga, Clay, Steph, Pods. Like, I do feel like that's what it would be. In a perfect world, again, unless you're going to have Draymond come off the bench. But how do you have if you have Draymond come off the bench, then how do you find the minutes for Trayce Jackson-Davis and for Saric? And I don't know. I think in some ways it's harder to bring Draymond off the bench. I think in other ways it might be easier to bring Draymond off the bench. But again, this is a problem that's at least 3 weeks away because you look at what was reported, and this is going to be an extended time, and the Warriors are going to play Portland tomorrow. They're going to go play Denver. They got Miami and Dallas. Then you get into 2024, and I think it's Orlando, Denver, and Toronto before the Warriors play the Pelicans on January the 10th, and then this long run of home games is going to come to an end, and then they're going to play more of a balanced schedule and a little bit more of a road-heavy schedule from that point over the final 3 months of the season. So you got basically all these home games. It seems like Draymond's going to be out for all of them is sort of where the reporting is. 808 KNBR, the number. Greg, what else we got here? Sounds of Silver.
Well, I'm glad you started talking about Chris Paul because I think Chris Paul has been fantastic for the Warriors. And I know that people have mixed feelings about him, especially if you're not a fan of the small ball when you play Steph and Chris Paul in the backcourt together. Put Brandon Pajemski out there in a closing lineup. All of a sudden, that's 3 guards, and then it gets a little bit tricky. But listen, the reason I want to bring up Chris Paul and specifically a Steve Kerr cut talking about how effective Chris Paul was tonight was because, well, that's the guy that they went to go get and sacrifice Jordan Poole for. Jordan Poole was a 20-point-per-game scorer last year, and then the big discussion when the Warriors were struggling over the last month was, well, you traded Poole, and that's your secondary source of offense behind Steph Curry. The reason they got Chris Paul was perfectly put on display tonight. Someone that could play big boy, high IQ basketball, especially when Steph Curry was off the floor or having an off night. And Chris Paul did just that. His plus-minus, which I know is not a tell-all stat, but plus 27, which was by far the highest of anybody on the team. He had 10 assists to 1 turnover, 7 rebounds, and he scored 4 points on 2 of 7 shooting. He missed his only free throw attempt. So offensively, just on the scoring sense, he was not very effective. But what he was able to do to gather that second unit, have them really settle into the game after the game got off to a little bit of a rocky start in the first quarter, well, that was everything. And Steve Kerr talked all about it with this 43-second cut. Let's hear it.
They play at the fastest pace in the league, and that was the message before the game was, don't get caught up in a track meet. We need to make them guard and get great shots, not just decent ones. And, the first 5 minutes we took a bunch of ill-advised shots, and they raced out to a lead. So Chris came in immediately, and the game settled down. But that's what he does. That's who he is. He's, one of the great point guards of all time, and seems like every game you look at the stat sheet, he's got 8 or 10 assists and 1 turnover, and he's plus whatever 27 tonight. So Chris is he's a genius point guard, and we're lucky to have him.
Yeah, I don't think he's going anywhere. We have people talking about, would the Warriors make a trade? What would they do? Look, it's a nice option to have in your back pocket if things go awry. And I think the Warriors were hoping that they would have that in their back pocket if things were going to go awry. But at this point, I do think they're getting the contributions that they want from Chris Paul. I think the more you can make Chris Paul a limited minute contributor, I think that's the most important thing that you can possibly do. 808 KNBR, the number. Warriors get the win 129-118. 14-14. They've won 4 in a row, and the Warriors are playing their best basketball in about a month and a half, really since the first 7-8 games of the season when this team was 6-2 before all hell kind of broke loose, and they went from 6-2, basically 4-12 in the next 16, and now they're 4-0 to snap out of it and get right back to the 500 mark with an opportunity to push themselves above the 500 mark. All right, 808 KNBR. We'll get to a few more in the YouTube chat, and we will also have some fun with numbers before we call it a night. Warriors win it 129-118. It's Dubs OT with John Dickinson here on KNBR 104.5 and 680, the sports leader.
Hoops Heads. Dubs OT with John Dickinson keeps ballin'. Streaming live at twitch.tv/thesportsleader. This is Dubs OT with JD. Time now for fun.
I'm a fun guy.
With numbers.
No, I'm just having fun.
On KNBR 104.5 and 680. Streaming live on KNBR.com and the KNBR app.
I think we all talked about it. We wanted to make sure he got the recognition he deserves for helping us get that championship a couple years ago and what he's become as an NBA player. So the fans did it right. Obviously, glad we got the win, but it was great to see him. Obviously, wish him all the best in the future. It's weird playing against him for sure, just because you gone to war with him for those 4 years.
Stephen Curry there talking about Jordan Poole on Poole's night to return to Chase Center. Warriors get the win, though, 129-118. All cheers for Jordan Poole. There really was not an audible boo in the crowd that I heard over at Chase Center from being there in the introductions and for a good chunk of the game before heading back here to the studio. So kind of a feel-good night, and I'm sure it had to be a little bit weird as the Warriors get the win, but they also, I think, honor Jordan Poole for everything he brought to the Golden State Warriors franchise and that championship team in a respectable manner. So 808 KNBR, the number. It's John Dickinson here on Dubs OT on the Sports Leader. Some fun with numbers. 4th straight win for the Warriors, and the home winning streak is extended now to 7 consecutive games. So the Warriors getting the job done on the home floor now. That winning streak continues. There's another streak that ended tonight, Greg. It is the clutch games streak for the Warriors. The clutch game streak for Golden State ends at 14. Now, the Warriors still lead the NBA with 23 clutch games. Always have to point it out. Clutch games within 5. 5 minutes left. Not tonight. Warriors led by as many as 23. It did look like it might get there for a second. Yes, it did. Yes, it did. There was a moment where I thought, I think it was 119-107. And there was a moment where I thought, oh, man, is Steve Kerr going to have to put Steph Curry back in the game, put some of the regulars back in the game? But that was the closest that Washington got. It was actually the final score once it got pushed up to 23. Never got the single digits, but they did get it down to 12 on a couple of occasions, including 119-107. And then Lester Quinones hit the 3, 2:57 to go, up 15. All right, Steve Kerr's not going to have to do it. But I think he was a play away from maybe having to do it. But alas, the string of clutch games comes to an end at 14. Warriors lead the NBA with 23 clutch games. They're 12-11, above 500 in those clutch games. 33 assists for the Warriors. 9th 30-assist game for the Warriors this year. What's Golden State's record when they have 30 or more assists? Well, they're 7-2. So, yeah, that's usually an indicator that things are going right for the Warriors. When the ball movement is there, the ball movement leads to the shot making, and the Warriors get the job done. There, Stephen Curry, game-high 30, season-high 8 3-pointers. How about that? So Stephen Curry's best 3-point shooting game of the season. He had made 7 5 times this year, but never 8. 8 of 13 for this season. Finishes with 30 points. Doesn't need to play in the fourth quarter, which helps keep him fresh for the second of the back-to-back as the Warriors are going to take on the Blazers tomorrow. Jonathan Kaminga, 22 points. 3rd 20-point game of the season. But how about this for Kaminga? He scored in double figures in 9 of the last 10 games and averaging 15.2 points per game over that span. So Jonathan Kaminga has been on one basically since Steve Kerr pulled him out of the rotation for 2.5 quarters. And Kaminga came back and helped them win that game. And he's helped them do nothing but win games since. And just kind of looking at the schedule, yeah, it was the Portland. It was one of those weird in-season tournament add-on games. That was the game where Steve Kerr pulled them out. But yeah, then they played Oklahoma City. Yeah, it's basically goes right back to that game. I was kind of counting them off there, looking at the schedule. Klay Thompson, 20 points, 5th consecutive game with at least that many points. So Klay Thompson's coming back to life with the lineup change as well. It kind of coincides with that. Warriors now 4-1 with this lineup. Stephen Curry, Brandon Podziemski, Klay Thompson, Jonathan Kaminga, and Kevon Looney. 4-1 with that lineup. That lineup goes back to the game against the Clippers, which was the game after Draymond was suspended for the incident with Yusuf Nurkic. Trace Jackson-Davis, 2nd consecutive double-double, 10 points, game high, and career high 15 rebounds. And we had this note earlier. He joins Wemby, Victor Wembanyama, who had 8 straight, and Chet Holmgren, who had 2 straight twice. The only rookies this season to record consecutive point rebound double-doubles. So Trace Jackson-Davis doing his thing as the Warriors get themselves a big win. That anything to add, Greg, on Fun with Numbers? I know you always come up. I always get my bookmark things that I want to look at. A lot of basic stuff. But you're pretty good at coming up with a few here and there. So you feel free to add. You don't have to do it tonight, but feel free to add one into the mix here. We can start adding that to the program as we produce things on the fly here on the Sports Leader. All right, we'll call it a night on that note because it is going to be a quick turnaround. And we are going to be back tomorrow right here on KNBR, the Sports Leader, as the Warriors will take on the Portland Trailblazers over at Chase. And we're also going to have a second episode of Just Dubs, the podcast version. So for those of you that haven't been paying attention or have missed it, we've launched the Just Dubs portion of our Warriors coverage here at the Sports Leader. And the first part of it is Dubs OT with JD after every single Warriors game. And Just Dubs is going to be the Saturday show that we're going to do here on the Sports Leader coming up in a couple of weeks in January. And for those of you that have been fans in my previous life of the NBA-specific, Dubs-specific Saturday show, it's coming here to KNBR in January. But the podcast is how we're kind of breaking it in. So Greg Silver, my man, is joining me for that. And we are going to record and drop a new Just Dubs podcast tomorrow. So look for that right around noon. Right around noon. Early afternoon tomorrow. As we talk all things Warriors basketball, the Just Dubs podcast. Again, live show coming in January right here on the Sports Leader. So look for that tomorrow. And again, we're going to get everybody through the holidays. And then once we get into 2024, the Just Dubs Saturday show, we'll get rocking and rolling. All right. Thanks to everyone. And Greg, I don't want to leave anybody out because we had a bunch of people. We had Raph in here tonight. Who else did we have tonight?
Yeah, so we had Raph. We had Kyle Haar getting some Dubs OT action. He's going to be a great asset for us as we move along the season.
Awesome.
And we just had Franco walk in. He's going to take over the board and do the graveyard shift. So always got to shout out my overnight guys.
Yeah, we got a lot. I mean, just we are fully staffed here on a Friday night into Saturday here on the Sports Leader. So we'll talk to you tomorrow. Final horn. Be on the lookout for Just Dubs. That's going to drop early afternoon. And then we'll talk to you after the Warriors take on the Blazers. What should be, yes, I'm saying it, their 5th consecutive win to get back over 500 for the first time in a long time. I don't even remember the last time the Warriors were over 500. And I'm not going to look it up at this point. But it better be tomorrow that they're back over the 500 mark going into the holiday game against the Nuggets. All right, we'll talk to you tomorrow. Warriors get the win, 129-118. Thanks to everybody It's been Dubs OT with JD, John Dickinson, KNBR 104.5 and 680, the sports leader.
That's just like making a game winner.
The lob, TJD.
Pocket three. Curry three. Oh my goodness.
We're going to be championship. KNBR, the sports leader.